Hey everyone, welcome back to my WordPress theme development series. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the ability to use SASS and also JavaScript compiling in your WordPress theme. If you don't know what SASS is, just Google it, SASS. It is a CSS preprocessor, and it just allows you to kind of split up your CSS code in different files to keep it cleaner. So for example, you could create a SCSS file for a specific part of your website, and then you can put them all together and it compiles it into one CSS file. You can also use variables, and it's really powerful. I can't teach you everything about SASS, but I can teach you how to set it up and make it work in your theme. So for this tutorial, I'm actually going to recreate a new WordPress theme and then start it from scratch to keep it simple. Because I know in my previous videos I was creating a theme and it's kind of getting a bit large now, and I just want to make it really straightforward for you. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, because we're using Laravel as the local server, I'm going to start the server, and I am going to then go and create a new application. So let's just quick app WordPress, and we'll just call it SASS. And I'll just wait for that to install. So Laravel is basically downloading WordPress, it's installing it, and it's going to set up everything we need to. And you can do this manually if you want to, but I'm just doing this to make it quick. Okay, so I'm just going to allow Laravel to create the pretty URL. Okay, and now it's completely installed. So let's go into our browser and let's just install a fresh WordPress. And once you've done the basic setup, let's log into WordPress. And now we have our fresh WordPress installed. So I'm just going to pretty this screen up. And I'm then going to go into my C drive, go to the Laravel folder, and go to the actual project, which is called SASS. We'll go into WP content and themes, and we'll delete all the themes that are there, and we'll just create a new folder, and we will call it SASS theme, whatever. And I'll go into it and then right click into the folder, go to terminal here and do code dot, and that is automatically going to open up the project in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so if you've been following the videos that I've created earlier in this series, then you would basically know how to set up a WordPress theme, but I'm just going to do it really quickly. So I'm just going to create the index.php. We'll create the header.php and the footer.php. We'll create the functions.php, and we will create the, what else do we have? Page.php, front-page.php, search.php, archive.php. And that should be enough for us to get started. I'll close out of all of these files as well. We'll also create a style.css obviously, and then we'll put a theme name in there. So theme name SASS theme. And that should be enough to get started. So we'll go back into WordPress, we'll go to appearance and then themes, and we'll create the SASS theme, or activate the SASS theme, sorry. Now, in the previous videos, I showed you how to enqueue your CSS and JavaScript. So we're still going to do that, but I'm going to show you how to set up the ability to use SASS and a JavaScript compiler first, and then we will enqueue the output of those compilers. All right, so now there's a lot of ways you can do this. You can use a program for SASS. You could use a program called, to go back into Google, Koala SASS. If you Google that, you'll see that it's kind of a user interface, a Windows application that you can use that kind of tracks your SASS and compiles it for you. And that's fine. I used to use that a long time ago. But you don't want to have to install this program on every computer that you work on. And if you work in a team, for example, you might want some other way to do it. And we can do that by using something called Node Package Manager. It's called NPM. And in NPM, we also have a library that is available called Laravel Mix. Now, if you're familiar with what Laravel is a PHP framework, and it is very powerful, and it uses Laravel Mix, which is kind of like a separate library, to allow you to code in SASS, and it will automatically convert that to CSS. So we're going to use Laravel Mix in our WordPress project. So the first thing we need to do is go onto Google and type in Laravel Mix. We'll then go to the second result, which is the Laravel Mix website. And that's a bit strange. They're having a server error. Fantastic. Well, that doesn't seem to be giving anyone a good impression about this package, but it is really an excellent package. So I guess a way around this, we could go back onto Google and we'll type in Laravel Mix again. And there's a page here, the installation page. We just want to click on cached here, and we'll see the cached version of it. All right, so let's follow the setup of Laravel Mix. And as you can see, we have Laravel project, which we aren't doing. We're using WordPress, so we're going to do a standalone project. And the first thing we need to do is we need to install something through NPM. Now, we can't install anything on NPM unless we have NodeJS installed on our machine. Now, I'm using a Windows 10 machine, so I want to go onto the NodeJS website and just install it. So you'll see that there's a latest version. If you click into it and download it, once it's downloaded, let's just install it on the machine. Okay, so that's downloaded. We'll click into the installation file and we'll just basically run it. So I actually do have it already installed on my machine, so I can't really run you through the installation, but just click next, 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 and it will pretty much set up. You need to make sure you also have PHP installed, but if you are using Laragon, then it will just work. If you have XAMPP or something, it should work as well because you already have PHP installed on your computer. So Node is already installed on my machine, so I can follow these instructions quite easily. Now, go back into Visual Studio Code. We're inside the theme folder. If you go to Terminal and New Terminal, it's going to open up the terminal here. So let's just follow this. We don't want to do that because we've already got the application folder set up, which is our theme folder. We need to initialize an npm file. So let's just paste that. And then you should see eventually on the left-hand side, a package.json file is set up. And that's basically a file which will store all of our all of the names of the JavaScript libraries that we've got installed into our project. And then we want to install Laravel Mix. So we'll just copy that and we'll paste that in there. And we'll just wait for this to run. It can take a minute or so. Okay, so Laravel Mix is now installed into our project. We'll go back and check what else we need to do. Okay, so we need to now copy this and paste it in. And what this does is it copies a file called webpack.mix.js from our Node modules folder, which was set up when we installed npm or installed the Laravel Mix. So Laravel Mix goes into this Node modules folder, and we just need to copy a file out of there so we can edit it in our theme. So I'll just paste that in there. You should notice now on the left-hand side, we have a file called webpack.mix.js. And this is basically where we can edit how we want Laravel Mix to work. So if we go into there, you'll see a lot of stuff in here. The first thing you'll see is this mix asset management thing, which basically allows us to tell Laravel Mix which files to compile and where they should go. And then you have all this stuff which you don't need to use, so don't worry about this right now. It's pretty much just this section here. So I'm just going to separate these with lines. So the first line is saying, find a file called app.js and then compile it into our dist folder, which also doesn't exist. So let's go and create a new folder called dist. We'll also create a folder called src, which means source. So all of our source files are going to be inside this folder, and when they're compiled, they're going to be in our dist folder. And then when we enqueue our JavaScript and CSS into our WordPress theme, we're going to be enqueuing them from our dist folder. All right, so Laravel Mix is expecting a file called app.js. So let's create a new file called app.js inside our src folder.
let's also create a new file called app.scss in our CSS, our src folder. So app.scss. Cool. So now everything kind of should work. Our source folder has an app.js. It also has an app.scss. And then Laravel Mix knows that once it compiles, it will go into our dist folder with the same name. App.scss will be compiled into app.css. But you don't need to tell it that because it already knows based on the name of those folders. So I'm going to hit save. Let's go back to Laravel Mix and see what else we have to do. So we'll go further down and there's a thing here called npm scripts. We want to put these into our webpack.mix.js because this will allow us to basically type into the terminal whenever we want to compile our JavaScript and CSS. And also we can use something called npm run watch, which will automatically just watch for changes. So whenever we do a change in our SASS file, it's automatically going to compile into our CSS folder again. So I'm just going to clear this and I'm going to paste. Oh, no, actually, we don't want to put it in terminal. Sorry about that. We want to put it in our package.json file. All right. And here we have a scripts section, which has nothing in there. So we're basically going to be pasting this into our script section. Now, when you paste it, just make sure that you keep the comma there, otherwise it's going to cause an error. So we'll hit save there, and we will delete our package-lock.json because that kind of locks in all the previous settings we had, and we don't want to do that because we're going to regenerate this now. So now that we have everything set up, let's close out of these files. I'm going to go into terminal, and I'm just going to go npm install. And this is basically going to reinstall Laravel Mix, but it's also going to take into consideration the changes that we made to webpack.mix.js and also the changes in the package.json that we did. Okay, so now what we can do is in terminal, we can do npm run watch. Now what this is going to do, oh, okay, so we've got some sort of error. Let's see what has happened here. Okay, so it's saying cross-env is not supported or recognized. Okay, what we can do, as you can see here on the Laravel Mix page, there's also a thing called cross-env. Let's copy that. So that's just another library for npm. And let's just paste that in and install it. Okay, it's installed. I'll just clear my terminal. Now let's try and do npm run watch. So, okay, so it looks like it has some other dependencies it's going to install. So just let all of that do what it needs to do. Cool, so it's installed now. So let's clear this again and do npm run watch. So now what's going to happen is these two files here in app.js, in our source folder, are automatically going to compile now and go into our dist folder. So let's click on our dist and you'll see now they exist. But you'll notice app.scss is app.css. Okay, so now that we have set up Laravel Mix properly, if I go into my app.css and just do body background black, for example, and hit save, it automatically builds again. So then if we go into our dist folder and click on app.css, it's automatically there. I'll show you how powerful SASS can be shortly, but let's enqueue our CSS and JavaScript files now. So if you've followed my series, you'll know that to enqueue our JavaScript and CSS, we just need to go to our functions.php and we'll open it up with a PHP tag. And then I'm going to create one function and enqueue both the CSS and JavaScript in one function. So we'll do function scripts. And then after the function, we'll just make sure that we add the hook in, which is add action, WP enqueue scripts, and then the name of our function, which is called scripts. Now that we have that, within here, let's enqueue our dist app.css file. So let's just do WP register style, and we'll just call it style. The second argument is the link or where the actual style or the app.css is located. So let's just do get template directory URI and then a dot to separate it or to concatenate it. Dist app.css, sorry, CSS, not SCSS. So we're basically linking to this file here. The next argument will be any dependencies, which there are none. So we'll just do a blank array. And then there is a version. So I'm just going to do version 1. And then this is the media. So we'll just make it all as opposed to like screen or something like that. We'll then just enqueue the style, which is WP enqueue style, and then the name of the style, which is called style. Okay, now let's enqueue our JavaScript. So we can do WP register script, and we'll just call it script. Maybe we'll call it something. We'll call it app. And then we'll do the same thing, get template directory URI, which is the location or the location of the theme. And then we'll tell it that it's located in the dist folder, and then it's called app.js. The next option is dependencies. In this case, we could say it depends on jQuery, which will ensure WordPress loads jQuery before this script. And then the second last is the version, so I'll just do 1. And then the last one is whether it should be in the footer of the website or not. And I'm going to put true, because you typically load JavaScript in the footer of the website. And then we're just going to enqueue the script, so WP enqueue script, and we've called it app, so we'll just do app. The last thing you might want to do is jQuery to actually be enqueued as well. So I'm just going to, just before the app here, I'm going to do WP enqueue script, and then just jQuery, because jQuery comes with WordPress. All right, cool. We have some sort of error here. Yep, we just need to put the semicolon there and hit save. So that should work. But obviously, if we go into our project and we go into the front page, it's not going to show anything, because we need to actually, firstly, we can set a home page. So let's just set a, actually, I'll delete these pages just to keep it nice and clean. Empty the trash, add new, and we're using the new editor. I'll just call it home, publish it, go to settings and reading, and make the home page the home page of the website. And then if we go into our theme folder and go to front page, this is where it's going to obviously display now. So you'll see that comes up. Let's just include the files we need. So we'll do PHP get header and PHP get footer. And then inside our header.php, let's do PHP. Actually, let's do the scaffolding of an HTML5 page. So with VS Code, you can just do HTML:5 and hit tab, and it's automatically going to create the scaffold for an HTML file. So now that we have that, we'll grab the body in the HTML and we'll put it in our footer.php. And in our header here, we want to obviously do PHP WP head, and that is going to bring in all the enqueued styles and JavaScript in your theme. I'll just call it my SASS theme. In the footer, that's already there, but if we go to frontpage.php, we're calling the footer, but the footer also needs to grab something as well, so it can show any of the JavaScript files that are in the footer, which is PHP WP footer. Cool. All right, so let's go and refresh now and see. We do have a black screen. Why is that? Well, if you remember, when we went into app.scss, we added this in there and it compiled into app.css. So let's just get rid of that. We'll hit save. If we go to app.css now, it's blank. We'll refresh. You might have to hit control refresh for it to update the CSS, and you'll see it's blank again. We'll look at the source and you'll see that we have all of the stuff. So we have jQuery set up, we have app.css there, and then in the footer we have our app.js there as well, which has all this stuff in it, which is you'll look at it and you'll go, what the hell is all this? Well, this is because we're compiling into the development version. When you actually want to send your project live, you might want to compile it into the production version. But let's just see how SASS works and how we can then compile it into our production version. So app.scss, let's go in there. We'll make the body background, we'll make it gray, hit save, then go back into our project, refresh it. Now it's gray. Let's just say in SASS we want to do some variables. So we'll do the primary color is going to be black, but the secondary color is going to be just green. Okay, so you'll see I created these variables, and now I can use these variables within my SASS file. So we could do, instead of making it gray, we could do primary. So the background is primary. And that way you can reuse this variable throughout all your SASS files, and that way you don't have to change a million files if you want to change one color. We'll go refresh, done. So we'll go to app.css and you'll see it comes up exactly the same way. Let's just go and add a couple of pages onto our theme, or a couple of sections to our theme, sorry. We'll go to frontpage.php, we'll go into header.php and we'll create a header tag. And we'll go into our frontpage.php and create a content div, so class equals content. All right, so now that we have that, we might want to break up our SCSS so that we have an SCSS file just for our header and one for our content. So how would we do that? Well, let's go back into our source folder, close out of this, go to our app.scss, and let's import some files. So we'll firstly create some new files. We'll create one underscore header.scss, and we'll also create one called underscore content.scss. Now, why do I put an underscore there? Well, really, it doesn't matter. It just helps you differentiate between what the main SCSS file is and what the included ones are. We'll then go into app.scss and we'll just do import content, which refers to content.scss, and import header. Maybe we'll put the header first. Hit save, it's all worked. Now let's go into our header.css and do something for our header. So we'll just do header, background black, width 100%, height 50 pixels. Right, so let's go into our dist file now and have a look how it comes out. There we go. So it's all just been compiled into one CSS file. However, when you're editing the code, they're in separate files to keep it simpler for you. So go and refresh. And we still have a black background. So let's go to our app.scss and just remove this stuff because we don't want that right now. There we go. Maybe make the header a bit higher. Beautiful. Now let's go to our content.css, and if you remember, we have on our front page, we have a div called content. So let's target that. Content. We'll make that min height 1000 pixels, and we'll do background like a gray color. Save. We'll actually also give it a width of 100%. Refresh. Maybe I'll make it a bit darker so you can actually see it. Cool. All right. So we have the two sections. So in app.css, they are together. They've been compiled by our SASS compiler. But when you're editing it, you edit them separately. So then you could go and create another file called, say, import, and we'll just call it colors. There's going to be an error because we haven't created the colors file yet. So I'll just go create one called colors.scss. And let's create a variable called dark, and we'll make it 666666. And you have to be careful. You have to make sure that your variable that you might want to, or your variables that you might want to use throughout your project are at the top so that they get imported first so your other sections can use it. So I'll save that. We'll go into our header now and we'll make it dark. Hit save, it compiled, refresh, and it's kind of the same color as the content. So we'll make the content, we'll go back into our colors. We'll make another one called light. And we'll do 999,999. Go into our content and make that the light variable. Refresh, there we go. You'll notice we have this border around there, and that's because we haven't used anything like reset.css or normalize.css. But in this instance, I'm going to show you how to bring Bootstrap into your theme through SASS. So let's go on to Google and just Google Bootstrap. You'll go to the main page called getbootstrap.com, click into there, click into documentation, and you should see something called, well, first thing we need to do is in the introduction. Go to the introduction, you'll see that we have the quick start. And in the past, when you're not using SASS, you would typically just, bring the CSS file into your project and run it by enqueuing the files. And that's fine, but when you bring it in through SASS, it allows you much more flexibility when it comes to overriding the original styles of Bootstrap. So you can change colors much simpler. And SASS will then compile the Bootstrap file with your changes in it, as opposed to overriding them with standard CSS. So let's go and click on theming. And it's going to basically show you how to use it with SASS. We obviously want to bring it in through SASS first. So let's go back into our project, and I'll just get out of this by hitting Control C, and I'll clear it, and we'll do npm install Bootstrap. And once we install Bootstrap, we need to import it into our SASS file, our main SASS file, which is app.scss. Now that Bootstrap is installed, we can bring Bootstrap into our SASS by doing import node modules Bootstrap SCSS Bootstrap. Now, how did I get that? Well, if you remember, we have a node modules folder, and inside there we have a lot of things, but one of them is Bootstrap. And you'll see we have we're telling it to go to Bootstrap, then SCSS, and then to the main Bootstrap file, which is there. So that's basically what it's referring to. You don't have to worry about that now because it's bringing it into the project. So let's do npm run watch now. And basically it's going to create one CSS file with Bootstrap and all of our CSS all combined into one file. So now that it's run, let's go and look at our project, hit refresh. You'll notice now the edges are gone because Bootstrap has done what it needs to do with its resetting. We'll view the source and we'll go to app.css, and you'll see now we have Bootstrap. We also have our styles that we created as well. Cool, so what if we want to override it? Well, if you look at the Bootstrap page, the theming page, it has all the information you would need. And if you wanted to change the theme colors, you could just go here, right? Copy it, paste it above the import, and then you could change the primary color. So how would you be able to test that that works? Let's go into our front page and we'll do like a button. So button class equals button primary. And we'll just type click here, save. Let's go and see what it looks like right now. We'll refresh it. There we go. We have a button there, but it's the standard color that Bootstrap comes with. So let's go and change that to say red. Hit save. Wait for it to compile. Go back to our theme, control refresh. There we go. Our primary color, which will reflect throughout our whole Bootstrap setup, will be red now. So there's tons of things you can do with SASS compared to the standard importing of the Bootstrap CSS file. But you'll probably have to look into that a bit further. I might do a video later down the track which shows you all of that. Now, let's just say your project has now been completed and you want to put the website up live. you want to then compile this into the production version. You'll see right now, because we're doing npm run watch, it's compiling it into like an unminified version. So we'll go here and view the source and go to app.css, and it's kind of all, it's a large file. There's a lot of space here. Also with our app.js, which we actually haven't done anything with yet, that's all like that as well. So let's go into our app.js and just do a simple alert, and we'll just say hello. We'll save that. We will refresh it, and there the JS is working, obviously, and our CSS is working. We're ready to go to our live version. So let's close out of our npm run watch and do npm run prod. And this is basically going to minify everything and put it into a very compact version so we can put it online. Now that it has run, you'll see our app.js file is 998 bytes and our CSS file is 142 kilobytes, most likely because Bootstrap is taking up most of that space. We'll refresh it again, control refresh. The JS is working, the page CSS is working, but let's go and have a look at the app.css now. Everything is minified automatically for you. And if we go further down, app.js is also minified as well. So it's production ready. One thing you might want to do in your in your webpack.mix.js is make it so Laravel Mix does not process the URLs. Now, when I say that, I mean, if you're going to say put a background image using SASS, so let's just say header, background, URL, images, image.jpg, right? Laravel Mix is actually going to look for that file, and for some reason it doesn't find it properly. So you may need to switch off the ability for it to do that, which you can do by going to webpack.mix.js and have a look in this commented out features here and look for one called process URLs. So actually it's here, process CSS URLs. So we can just grab that, and we can then, we need to create an options section. So we'll do dot options, and inside there we'll paste that and we'll make it false. And then we need to do npm run watch again for it to process those changes, and you won't have any issue with it processing URLs. Last but not least, I would say the most important thing is that when you are actually putting this onto a live server, and if you are using something like GitHub, you want to make sure that you do not upload the node modules file onto GitHub, because it will mean that the node module is actually quite huge, and node modules really only needs to be on your computer. So to do that, you could easily just go into your theme and you could create a new file called .gitignore, and then just put node modules in there like that, hit save, and then when you create a Git repository, it's not going to upload your node modules folder. One last thing I wanted to explain to you how to do is if you're going to put this, or when you're going to put your project on a live server, if you're not going to be using GitHub or anything like that, and you're just going to be putting the theme onto, say, a cPanel WordPress setup, you really don't need this node modules folder, because this is something that your local computer uses. It doesn't need it on the production server. So just as an example, I'm just going to I'm going to close out of Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to just copy everything and exclude the node modules folder. So highlight and click on the node modules folder with the control button in on your keyboard, and it will automatically exclude it. Then you can just add it to an archive, to a zip folder, and then you could upload that zip folder to your theme folder on your WordPress installation on your server and extract it. The only real time you're going to need this node modules folder is when you're actually working on the machine. But let's just say if you use this, want to use this theme and edit it on another computer which doesn't have the node modules folder installed, well, you can easily delete this node modules folder And as long as you have the package.json file there and the webpack.mix file there, then you can easily recreate the Node modules folder. You also need to have NodeJS installed on whatever machine you're going to be working on the project with. So let's go, and we'll go to terminal right now, and we'll do code dot, which will open up the project again in our Visual Studio Code. We'll go to terminal and we'll do npm run watch now. Now it's not going to work because we don't have the Node modules folder anymore, okay? But we're going to assume we're on a new computer now. As you can see, it's not working. So to make it all work again like it did before, we'll just do npm install. And this is basically going to refer to the package.json or package-lock.json, and it's going to install everything back into another Node modules folder, which runs locally on your computer. And then you're going to be able to do exactly the same thing you did by doing npm run watch, npm run prod. Everything will work exactly the same. So that's how you can, give it to a team member to work on, and they can install it locally on their machine as well. But just make sure you don't put the Node modules folder on your production server, because it's a massive file. It can be hundreds of megabytes, and it just makes it really difficult for you to upload because it could take a long time. So now if we do npm run watch, everything should work exactly how it did before. And as you can see, it's working. Okay, so with that being said, that's the end of the video. Hopefully this has brought some sort of value to you and shown you how to improve your development skills. Please don't hesitate to subscribe, and if you have any questions, please definitely comment below this video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.